Valladolid, historic city situated in the heart of Spain, flourished as an important cultural and economic center in the 16th century. Its narrow, winding streets were a maze of stone houses and majestic buildings that were home to a vibrant and diverse population. The Gothic and Renaissance buildings, with their ornate facades, reflected the splendor of a time when art and science were beginning to intertwine in a fascinating way. Daily life in Valladolid was marked by a frenetic pace of commerce and social interaction. Merchants and artisans filled the squares with their wares, while nobles and clergy discussed politics and philosophy in the shaded courtyards of convents and palaces. The churches, with their imposing towers, dominated the skyline, reminding everyone of the constant and powerful presence of religion in the city's life. Yet beneath the surface of this apparent prosperity was palpable tension. The streets, although full of life during the day, became dark and silent at nightfall. Stories of disappearances and unexplained events whispered among residents gave a dark tone to the vibrant city. It was a time of discovery and progress, but also of superstition and deep fears. It was in this environment of contrasts that the mystery began to unfold. The sudden disappearance of a 9-year-old boy shocked the community, breaking the daily routine and plunging Valladolid into a frantic and desperate search. The streets, once bustling with commercial activity, now echoed with the anxious calls of people searching for the missing child. As the days passed and hopes diminished, tension in the city increased. Murmurs about ancient pacts and hidden forces began to circulate, amplifying the climate of fear and uncertainty. And it was in this context that a disturbing sound broke the silence of the night, screams and frightening noises coming from a house that everyone knew, but few dared to approach. The house belonged to Andrés de Proaza, a young doctor known for his brilliant mind and unorthodox methods. Andrés was an enigmatic figure, respected by some and feared by many. His residence, always shrouded in shadows, now became the epicenter of an even darker mystery. What would lie beyond that door? The boy's disappearance happened on a seemingly ordinary morning. The family of Juan, a boy just 9 years old, woke up to discover that he was not in his bed. Initially, they thought he might be playing nearby, but as hours passed with no sign of him, panic began to take over. Juan's desperate mother ran through the streets of Valladolid, calling for her son, while neighbors and friends quickly joined the search. Juan's disappearance spread like wildfire throughout the city. In such a close-knit community, the loss of a child was a personal tragedy for everyone. The men organized themselves into search groups, searching every corner of the narrow streets, while the women formed prayer circles, asking for protection in the boy's quick return. Children were kept close to home, and a feeling of anxiety hung in the air. With each day that passed without a sign of Juan, the tension increased. Rumors began to circulate. Some said they had seen strange shadows at night, others whispered about old tales of hauntings. The fear of the unknown began to infiltrate the minds of the residents. Theories ranged from kidnapping by bandits to supernatural explanations. However, no concrete evidence emerged, and hope began to fade. It was then that, on the third day of the search, a group of men heard strange screams and noises coming from a house located on the outskirts of Valladolid. The home of Andrés de Proaza, the mysterious young doctor, had become a place of intrigue. Andrés was known for his brilliance in medicine, but also for his reclusiveness and unorthodox methods. His house, always closed and shrouded in mystery, was now the focus of a new fear. The screams were desperate, echoing in the silent night and filling the hearts of the listeners with indescribable terror. The men hesitated for a moment, the fear of facing the unknown holding them back, but duty to the missing child pushed them forward. With strength and determination, they broke down the door of Andrés' house, prepared to face whatever was inside. As they entered, they were met with a sight they would never forget. Andrés was sitting in a chair in the center of the room, staring at a table in front of him. On the table, Juan's body was dissected, surrounded by animal corpses. The boy's organs were on display, as if they had been meticulously manipulated and studied. The scene was grotesque and disturbing, freezing the men in shock and horror. Andrés, with disconcerting calm, admitted that he was responsible for the boy's death. He revealed that he had made a pact with the devil to gain in-depth knowledge about anatomy and medicine. The chair he was sitting on, he said, was cursed and served as a means of communicating with evil forces. According to him, any doctor who sat in it could access this knowledge, but for lay people, the chair meant certain death in 3 days. Furthermore, those who tried to destroy the chair would also meet their death at dawn. The revelation shocked and horrified the community. The loss of Juan was already a devastating blow, but the discovery of the circumstances of his death plunged Valladolid into an even deeper state of fear and superstition. The presence of the cursed chair and Andrés' pact with the devil raised disturbing questions about the limits of knowledge and the dangers of seeking power at any cost. The community's reaction to Juan's disappearance was immediate and intense. As soon as the news spread, everyone in Valladolid felt the gravity of the situation. The boy's family, in a state of absolute panic, received immediate support from neighbors and friends. Juan's house became a meeting place, with people coming and going, offering help and comfort to the desperate parents. Community leaders quickly organized search parties. The strongest and most agile men were divided into teams, each responsible for a different area of the city and its surroundings. They searched parks, markets, alleys and even the most inhospitable places. No one wanted to leave any stone unturned in the hope of finding any clue that would lead to the boy's whereabouts. While the men searched tirelessly, the city's women gathered in churches and homes, forming prayer circles. They prayed fervently for Juan's safety and for the strength of the search teams. The sound of prayers was a constant reminder of the community's solidarity and the hope that still persisted despite the growing despair. Children were kept at home, and schools temporarily closed. The presence of authorities increased on the streets, trying to maintain order and help with searches. The city, normally full of life and movement, was now filled with a tense, anxious silence. Conversations were whispered, and every face reflected worry and fear of the unknown. As the days went by, the lack of concrete clues began to weigh on everyone. Intensive searches had revealed nothing, and the fear that something terrible had happened to the boy was growing. It was then that rumors began to circulate. Some people claimed to have seen strange shadows at night, others talked about unusual noises coming from abandoned houses. The fear of the supernatural, which had always lurked in the darkest corners of the collective imagination, began to gain strength. On the third day of searching, a group of men finally heard the screams and frightening noises coming from Andrés de Proaza's house. This disturbing sound echoed through the night, bringing a new level of dread. Andrés' home, already shrouded in mystery due to his seclusion and unusual study methods, became the focus of attention. They decided they couldn't ignore what they were hearing and, mustering all the courage they could, they moved forward to confront whatever was behind those doors. As they broke down the door and broke into the house, the horrific sight they encountered froze them in place. Andrés sitting in his chair, Juan's dissected body on the table, animal corpses all around. Shock and repulsion took over everyone. Andrés confessed his actions with disturbing coldness, revealing the pact with the devil and the curse of the chair. The community, already in shock over Juan's disappearance, now faced an even more terrifying revelation. The idea that one of their own had committed such an atrocity in the name of knowledge and power was almost unbearable. The news spread quickly, plunging Valladolid into an atmosphere of fear and superstition. Andrés' home, now seen as a cursed place, became the epicenter of horrific stories and grim warnings. The loss of Juan was a devastating blow, but the discovery of the circumstances of his death plunged the community into deep darkness. The presence of the cursed chair and Andrés' pact with the devil raised disturbing questions about the limits of knowledge and the dangers of seeking power at any cost. The city of Valladolid would never be the same, forever marked by this horrible and inexplicable tragedy. The days dragged on painfully as the search for Juan continued without success. The tireless search teams searched every corner of Valladolid and its surroundings, but found no sign of the missing boy. The initial optimism began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of despair and helplessness. Hours turned into days, and each day without news weighed like an eternity on the community's shoulders. The men, exhausted and frustrated, returned home at night with their faces marked by exhaustion and disappointment. Once fervent discussions about search strategies became monotonous and repetitive, and the initial energy gradually faded. Even the most determined began to doubt whether Juan would be found. The nights were long and restless, with many staying up late, anxious and fearful of what the next day might bring. Juan's family, devastated by their son's absence, kept a constant vigil. The mother, overcome by pain, could barely eat or sleep, her face reflected a deep anguish that seemed to have no end. The father, trying to be the family's anchor, oscillated between hope and despair, knowing that every moment without answers diminished the chances of finding his son alive again. Prayers and community support, while comforting, did little to alleviate the suffering they felt. As the search continued, the atmosphere in the city changed. Conversations in the markets and on the streets revolved around theories and speculation about what could have happened. Some residents, in an effort to find some explanation, began to recall old stories of mysterious disappearances and supernatural events. Superstition, always present in the shadows of the collective mind, began to emerge with force. It was in this climate of growing tension and fear that rumors began to spread. Some people claimed to see shadowy figures moving around at night, while others reported hearing unexplained whispers in dark alleys. The home of Andrés de Proaza, the young doctor, became a focus of particular interest and suspicion. Known for his brilliance and unconventional methods, Andrés was a figure who aroused both admiration and fear. His residence, always shrouded in mystery, now attracted suspicious and curious looks. However, even with these suspicions, there was no concrete evidence linking Andrés to Juan's disappearance. The community was in a state of suspense, waiting for a sign, a clue that would bring some clarity to the enigma. With each passing day, uncertainty and anxiety increased, and the shadow of tragedy seemed to extend over Valladolid. It was then that, on the third day of searches, screams and frightening noises coming from Andrés' house broke the silence of the night. This disturbing sound, full of despair, brought a new wave of terror to the city. The men who heard the screams knew they couldn't ignore what was happening. With heavy hearts and full of apprehension, they decided to confront the mystery that surrounded the young doctor's house. When they broke down the door and entered the house, the sight that awaited them was more horrible than anyone could have imagined. Andrés sitting in his chair, Juan's dissected body on the table, the animal corpses all around, a scene of pure horror that froze the men in place. Andrés, with unsettling calm, confessed his actions and revealed the pact he had made with the devil to obtain profound medical knowledge. The revelation shocked the community to its core. The loss of Juan was already devastating, but the discovery of the circumstances of his death brought a new layer of fear and superstition. The cursed chair, the pact with the devil, and the horror of a science without ethical limits would haunt Valladolid for generations. The city, once a place of prosperity and culture, was now marked by an immeasurable tragedy and a dark mystery that would never be forgotten. On the night of the third day, when hope was already beginning to fade and exhaustion took over the residents of Valladolid, a disturbing sound broke the silence. Sharp screams and frightening noises echoed through the streets, coming from a house located on the outskirts of the city. The sounds were so intense and terrifying that no one could ignore them. People came out of their homes, their faces pale with fear and apprehension, trying to understand where the horrible noises were coming from. The screams were unmistakable, sounds of pure despair and agony. Mixed in with them were strange, indescribable noises, as if something or someone was fighting an invisible, malevolent force. The residents, already shaken by Juan's disappearance, felt fear rise in their hearts. The men, who were still determined to find the boy, quickly gathered, armed with flashlights and makeshift tools, ready to face whatever was causing the terror. The source of the screams was quickly identified: Andrés de Proaza's house. For many, the choice was obvious and, at the same time, terrifying. Andrés, the brilliant and reclusive young doctor, was already a figure shrouded in mystery and suspicion. His residence, always closed and gloomy, now seemed to emanate an aura of pure evil. The disturbing sounds coming from there only confirmed the fears that many already secretly harbored. With heavy hearts and trembling hands, the men approached the house. The screams continued, piercing the night air and filling everyone with a deep, primal fear. Some hesitated, considering the possibility that they were dealing with something beyond human understanding. But the duty to discover the truth about Juan and the need to end that torment prevailed. Strong, determined hands broke down the door with a deafening crack. The sight that awaited them inside was more horrific than anyone could have imagined. Andrés de Proaza was sitting in his chair, his blank, fixed gaze directed at a table in front of him. On the table, Juan's body was dissected, the organs exposed in a grotesque display of anatomical knowledge. Around the boy's body, there were animal corpses, equally dissected and manipulated. The screams the men had heard now seemed to echo off the walls, a ghostly reminder of the horror that had occurred here. Andrés, with disturbing calm, raised his eyes to face the intruders. Without showing any sign of remorse or fear, he confessed to being responsible for the boy's death. He explained, with frightening coldness, that he had made a pact with the devil to obtain profound medical knowledge, and that the chair in which he sat was the medium through which he communicated with evil forces. The revelation shocked everyone present. Andrés explained that any doctor who sat in that chair could access forbidden knowledge, but for lay people, the chair brought certain death within 3 days. Furthermore, he warned that any attempt to destroy the chair would result in the death of the person responsible. The men, overcome by a mixture of horror and indignation, could hardly believe what they heard. The sight of Juan, an innocent child, transformed into a victim of a diabolical pact was unbearable. Andrés' home, now clearly a cursed place, became the center of a story even darker and more terrifying than anyone could have predicted. The discovery of the frightening screams and noises revealed not only Juan's tragic fate, but also a profound horror that would take root in Valladolid's collective memory. Andrés' pact with the devil, the cursed chair, and science perverted by the quest for power became legends that would haunt the city for generations. A night that began with screams ended with a revelation of pure terror, leaving an indelible scar on the soul of the community. Andrés de Proaza was an intriguing figure at Valladolid. From a young age, he demonstrated brilliant intelligence and insatiable curiosity, characteristics that made him stand out among his peers. Born into a humble family, he managed to excel in his studies and quickly won a scholarship to study medicine, something rare at the time. His natural talent and tireless dedication made him one of the most promising students at the local university. Despite his brilliant academic career, Andrés was a young man with few friends. He preferred to spend long hours immersed in his books and experiments, distancing himself from the social life that other young people his age tended to pursue. This voluntary seclusion, while increasing his knowledge and skills, also fueled rumors and speculation. Many found it strange that such a talented young man preferred the company of the dead and books to living with living people. Over time, Andrés began to dedicate himself to studies that few dared to explore. Fascinated by anatomy and the inner workings of the human body, he frequently performed dissections and experiments that made his colleagues and even his teachers uncomfortable. His house, located on the outskirts of Valladolid, became a true laboratory where he could explore his theories and carry out his research without interruptions or judgments. Andrés was, without a doubt, a brilliant doctor. His anatomical skills and knowledge far surpassed those of his contemporaries. Patients who passed through his hands often recovered from illnesses and injuries that other doctors considered incurable. However, this extraordinary ability did not come without a price. The unorthodox methods and clinical coldness with which he carried out his operations and studies left many suspicious and fearful. Rumors about Andrés began to spread. Some said he had made a pact with supernatural forces to obtain his vast knowledge. Others believed that he performed dark rituals in his home, where he used the bodies of animals and, perhaps, even humans for his experiments. These rumors, although never confirmed, contributed to the aura of mystery and fear that surrounded his figure. Andrés' house was a reflection of its resident. The windows were always closed, the heavy curtains blocked any view of the interior, and few dared to approach. At night, strange lights could be seen shining through the cracks in the windows, and unusual sounds often echoed off the walls. For the residents of Valladolid, Andrés' residence became synonymous with something sinister, a place where dark and dangerous secrets were kept. Despite suspicions and fears, Andrés continued with his research, increasingly obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the human body. He believed that the key to prolonging life and curing all diseases was hidden in the anatomical details he so diligently studied. His ambition and determination were unparalleled, and nothing seemed capable of stopping his quest for absolute knowledge. It was in this relentless search that Andrés made the fateful pact. Desperate for more knowledge and skills that could overcome any human limitations, he sought unconventional means to achieve his goals. The cursed chair, with its promises of power and wisdom, became the tool through which he communicated with dark forces. And it was that same chair that led him to commit unthinkable acts, including the sacrifice of innocent lives in the name of science. When the men of Valladolid broke down the door of his home that fateful night, they discovered not only the horrors Andrés had committed, but also the depth of his corruption. The sight of Juan's dissected body, surrounded by the corpses of animals, revealed how far he was willing to go in his search for forbidden knowledge. Andrés's confession, made with terrifying coldness, confirmed the community's worst fears. Andrés de Proaza's introduction to the people of Valladolid was marked by the brilliance of his intelligence and the darkness of his actions. A young doctor whose ambition has led him to surpass the limits of ethics and morality, plunging him into an abyss of horror and condemnation. Andrés' story became a warning about the dangers of seeking power at any cost, an eternal reminder of the price he and the community paid for their insatiable desire for knowledge. The decision to invade Andrés de Proaza's residence was made amid a mixture of fear, determination and a sense of duty towards Juan and his family. The harrowing screams that echoed through the night were the breaking point for many in the Valladolid community. They could no longer ignore the horror emanating from the young doctor's home, especially after weeks of fruitless searching for the missing boy. The men, armed with torches and makeshift tools, gathered outside Andrés' shadowy house. Some were nervous, looking to each other for shared courage. Others were determined, their faces hardened with determination to discover the truth and bring justice for Juan. The decision to invade was not taken lightly. Many in the crowd knew of the rumors surrounding Andrés, of the diabolical pacts, the dark rituals, and the strange lights that were seen shining through the windows at night. Now, with the desperate screams still ringing in their ears, they felt compelled to confront whatever was hiding in that house. It was the village elder, a man respected for his wisdom and leadership, who finally gave the signal. With a grave expression, he raised his hand and gestured for the men to advance. With a cry of unity, the crowd rushed the door of Andrés' home, determined to discover the truth and end the terror that had taken hold in their community. The door gave way with a deafening crack, giving way to a darkness that seemed to swallow the intruders. Torches cast dancing shadows across the walls as men cautiously entered the house. The air was thick with a mixture of tension and fear, everyone aware that they were about to confront something terrible and unknown. As they entered deeper into the residence, the sounds of screams and moans became louder and more distressing. Whatever was happening within these walls, it was a torment that no one could ignore. They passed through dark corridors and dusty rooms, following the sounds until they reached the source of the terror. It was then that they found Andrés de Proaza, sitting in his chair in the center of a room lit by a pale, flickering light. His presence was strangely calm, contrasting with the violence of the sounds echoing around him. The horror unfolding before them was more than anyone could have imagined, and the truth about Juan's fate would soon be revealed. The decision to invade Andrés' house was not just an act of desperation or revenge. It was an act of courage and justice, driven by the desire to bring the hidden truth to light and restore peace to Valladolid. What they discovered that night would haunt their minds forever, marking the beginning of a tragedy that would echo through the centuries. Inside Andrés' house, the scene was macabre and disturbing. The men, with flickering lanterns illuminating the shadowy corners of the room, came upon Andrés sitting motionless in a carved wooden chair, which seemed to emanate an aura of darkness. His blank, fixed gaze was directed at a nearby table, where the dissected body of Juan, the missing boy, lay, and several animal corpses scattered around. The boy's organs were exposed, meticulously arranged as if they were pieces of a macabre puzzle. The light from the torches reflected on the organs and bodies of the animals, creating dancing shadows that seemed to take on a life of their own. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the muffled noise of the men's heavy breathing, all shocked by the terrible scene before them. Andrés did not seem disturbed by the presence of the invaders. His face remained unfazed, a mask of cold serenity that contrasted with the carnage around him. The men could feel the weight of evil that permeated the place, a sinister presence that seemed to whisper in their minds, instilling fear and revulsion. The horror of the discovery chilled the blood of everyone present. The evidence before them confirmed their worst suspicions. Andrés was not just a brilliant doctor in search of knowledge, but a man corrupted by forces beyond human understanding. His pact with the devil, made through the cursed chair, transformed him into an agent of evil, willing to sacrifice innocent lives in his insatiable quest for forbidden power and wisdom. As the men watched in horror, some felt a shiver run down their spines, as if they were witnessing something that defied the laws of nature and morality. The truth about Andrés and his cursed chair cast a dark shadow over the Valladolid community, leaving scars that would never be erased. The scene inside Andrés' house was not just a revelation of physical horror, but a confrontation with the limits of humanity itself and the dangers of challenging the unknown. The tragedy of Juan, the boy sacrificed in the name of Andrés' distorted knowledge, would be remembered as a grim reminder of the dangers of uncontrolled ambition and the devastating consequences it can bring. The details of the dissection and manipulation of the child's organs revealed the disturbing extent of Andrés de Proaza's experiments. The men who broke into his home witnessed the meticulousness with which each organ was exposed and studied. Juan's body, now cold and lifeless, was laid out on the table as if it were an object of scientific study. Andrés had left no detail to chance. The boy's organs were meticulously cut and separated, revealing the internal structures in a way none of the men had ever seen before. The hearts of the animals were also arranged around, some still beating weakly and erratically, as if they were still trying to resist the death imposed by human hands. The silence that fell over the invaders was heavy, only broken by the occasional groan of horror or the muffled exclamation of astonishment. Andrés showed no sign of remorse or regret. His eyes, cold as steel, observed the men with a mixture of disdain and superiority, as if he considered his research and the means he used above any moral reproach. For the men of Valladolid, that moment was a reality check. The sight of the torn boy and Andrés' macabre experiments confirmed not only the disturbing rumors surrounding the young doctor, but also the existence of forces beyond human understanding. The cursed chair and the pact with the devil now seemed not just urban legends, but a sinister truth unfolding before them. The detailed dissection of Juan's organs and the macabre study of the animals were mute testimony to the price Andrés was willing to pay for knowledge and power. Those who witnessed that scene knew that their lives would never be the same, marked by horror and the perception that evil could exist among them, hidden behind apparently normal doors. Andrés de Proaza, in a moment of tense silence that hung over the room, broke the heavy veil of suspense by admitting that he was responsible for the brutal death of the boy Juan. His confession echoed off the walls like a grim verdict, confirming the worst fears of the Valladolid community. In a calm, controlled, almost mechanical voice, Andrés described how he had meticulously planned every detail of the crime. He explained how he lured Juan to his home with promises of learning about anatomy and medicine, only to subject him to a series of horrific experiments that culminated in the dissection of his young, innocent body. To the men surrounding him, his words were devastating confirmation that the monster they imagined Andrés to be was real. He showed no remorse or regret, just a clinical coolness that revealed the depth of his devotion to twisted science and the power it promised. Andrés' confession not only shocked those present, but also cast a dark shadow over the reputation of medicine and science at the time. The idea of a doctor, a man of learning and supposedly a healer, using his knowledge for such dark and cruel purposes was unimaginable to many. As Andrés spoke, the room echoed with a tense silence, only interrupted by the occasional murmur of disbelief or outrage. His gaze, fixed and penetrating, seemed to challenge anyone to challenge his authority or his actions. It was as if he truly believed he was above the moral laws that governed the rest of society. Andrés' confession was a moment of unsettling clarity for the men of Valladolid. They now faced the terrible truth that evil could dwell among them, disguised under the guise of scholarship and scientific knowledge. The journey to discover the extent of his crimes was just beginning, but the revelation of his confession had already changed life in the small Spanish town forever. The revelation of the cursed chair and Andrés de Proaza's pact with the devil to gain knowledge of anatomy and medicine cast an even more sinister shadow over the events unfolding in that dark room. Andrés, after confessing to his heinous crimes, did not hesitate to reveal the details of his dark pact. He explained how, in a time of desperation for knowledge beyond his traditional studies, he turned to forbidden methods and became involved in occult practices. It was then that he discovered the ancient chair, an artifact charged with an aura of evil that promised access to knowledge hidden in the shadows. According to Andrés, it was through the chair that he made contact with demonic entities who promised to reveal forbidden secrets of human anatomy and medicine. The price, however, was high and terrible. He would have to sacrifice not only his morality but also innocent lives to feed his insatiable desire to know more. As he spoke, the men around him felt a chill run down their spines. The idea of a pact with the devil was something that transcended religious beliefs and common fears. It was a truth that defied human understanding and shook the foundations of faith and morality in that deeply religious community. Andrés showed no regret for his pact or for the terrible acts he had committed in its name. Instead, he seemed proud of his connection to the unknown, an arrogance that further separated him from the humanity he once swore to serve. The revelation of the cursed chair and the pact with the devil cast a dark shadow over the room, a shadow that seemed to extend beyond the walls of Andrés' house. To the men who heard his story, it was a grim reminder that evil could lurk where it was least expected, even among those who sought the light of knowledge. Andrés de Proaza continued his explanation of the power of the cursed chair, revealing the dark details surrounding its use. He explained that the chair was not just an antique piece of furniture, but an artifact infused with supernatural powers that allowed communication with demonic entities. According to Andrés, doctors versed in anatomy and medicine could sit in the chair and establish a bond with the devil, allowing them access to knowledge and techniques that transcended the limits of conventional science. For these experts, the chair offered a portal to the unknown, providing insights that could save lives or condemn them. However, Andrés warned that lay people, those without the necessary knowledge or ability to understand the secrets revealed by the chair, would face a death sentence. He stated that anyone who dared to sit on the chair without proper preparation would not only fail to understand the devil's messages, but would also find their own life taken within 3 days. As he spoke, the men surrounding him felt a shiver run down their spines. The idea of a chair capable of deciding the fate of those who sat in it was disturbing and deeply alarming. They imagined the terror that would have struck Juan, the boy sacrificed by Andrés in his insatiable search for forbidden knowledge. For those present, Andrés' explanation was not only a confirmation of their worst suspicions, but also a shocking revelation about the extent of his nefarious practices. The cursed chair represented not only an instrument of learning, but a sinister symbol of the danger that lurked in the shadows, ready to seduce and destroy those who ventured beyond the limits of morality and reason. Andrés' account of the power of the cursed chair left an indelible mark on the minds of the men of Valladolid. They now faced not only the reality of a heinous crime, but also the terrifying realization that evil could be invited and cultivated under the guise of human knowledge. Andrés de Proaza, with a serious expression and penetrating gaze, continued his dark explanation about the cursed chair. He warned the men present of the terrible fate of those who dared attempt to destroy the artifact he now considered his portal to forbidden knowledge. According to Andrés, the chair was not just a cursed object, but a guardian of the dark secrets that he had uncovered with the help of the devil. He stated that any attempt to destroy the chair would trigger a series of fateful events. Those who dared to dismantle or burn the cursed piece of furniture would face a quick and violent death, as punishment for defying the hidden forces that protected it. The men who heard his warning looked at each other with expressions of fear and disbelief. The idea that a simple object could be so imbued with evil and power was difficult to accept, but the presence of Juan, the missing and sacrificed boy, bore witness to the macabre reality of the events unfolding before them. For Andrés, the chair was not just an instrument of access to forbidden knowledge, but a source of power that he was willing to protect at any cost. His warning about the fate of those who tried to destroy the chair echoed throughout the room, charged with a threat that transcended human moral laws. As he spoke, the tension in the room was palpable, fueled by the fear of the unknown and the growing realization that evil could be closer than any of them realized. The cursed chair had become a sinister symbol not only of Andrés de Proaza, but of the darkness that could be invoked, and the desire for knowledge exceeded the limits of the ethical and the human. Andrés de Proaza's revelation about the cursed chair and his pact with the devil left the Valladolid community in shock. The men present in that gloomy room felt the weight of the brilliant young doctor's words, his warnings and confessions echoing like thunder over their consciences. The initial reaction was one of disbelief and horror. Many refused to believe that one of their own, a man who studied medicine and was respected for his scholarship, could be involved in such dark and demonic practices. Some called for immediate justice, demanding that Andrés be severely punished for his crimes against the community's morality and faith. Others, however, were more stunned than outraged. They struggled to reconcile the image of the promising young doctor with the sinister truth that was now unfolding before them. The idea of a cursed chair and a pact with the devil seemed as absurd as it was terrifying, but the presence of Juan, the missing and disfigured boy, was irrefutable proof of Andrés' abominable acts. As murmurs and arguments spread throughout the community, a sense of distrust and fear began to take hold. The story of Andrés de Proaza had become not just a tale of horror, but a grim reminder that evil could hide beneath masks of respectability and erudition. The community's reaction to Andrés de Proaza's revelation marked the beginning of a period of questioning and self-reflection. They now faced not only the task of judging one of their own, but also of confronting the sinister depths of the human desire for knowledge and power, and the terrible costs that could accompany these forbidden pursuits. Andrés de Proaza, after revealing the dark secrets of the cursed chair and his pact with the devil, faced a dark fate along with the evil artifact. The community of Valladolid, astonished at the revelation, debated intensely about what should be done with the young doctor who had challenged the frontiers of human knowledge. Finally, a decision was made. Andrés was convicted for his horrendous crimes against morals and human life. He was taken away by local authorities and subjected to a swift and rigorous trial. The evidence was irrefutable, and the community's outrage demanded harsh justice. As for the cursed chair, community leaders decided that it posed an ongoing danger to the peace and security of Valladolid. Aware of Andrés' warnings about the dangers of trying to destroy the artifact, they took cautious steps. The chair was sealed in a secret location, away from the eyes and reach of those who might be tempted by its mysterious powers. Thus, both Andrés de Proaza and the cursed chair were banished from city life. Their stories remained a grim warning to future generations about the dangers of unbridled curiosity and quests for knowledge that exceed the limits of human ethics and morality. After the trial of Andrés de Proaza and the removal of the cursed chair, the community of Valladolid was left with a feeling of unrest and introspection. The revelation of the macabre events involving the young doctor and the supernatural artifact provoked a deep reflection on the limits of the search for knowledge at any cost. City leaders called meetings and debates to discuss the impact of the incident and lessons that could be learned. Many expressed concern about the insatiable human desire to understand the unknown, which, when left unchecked, could lead down dangerous and destructive paths. Some have argued that knowledge must be sought responsibly and with respect for ethical and moral limits. They pointed to the dark example of Andrés de Proaza, whose desire for knowledge led him to commit horrendous acts that defied societal norms and put lives in danger. Others, however, recalled that the desire to know and understand is intrinsic to human nature. They argued that the pursuit of knowledge should be encouraged, as long as it is accompanied by a vigilant awareness of the risks and responsibilities it entails. Ultimately, the reflection on the pursuit of knowledge at any cost left a legacy of caution in the community of Valladolid. The events involving Andrés de Proaza and the cursed chair served as a reminder that knowledge is a powerful tool that must be handled with care and respect, for the good of all. Faced with the disturbing events involving Andrés de Proaza and the cursed chair, a crucial question arises: how far should we go in our search for knowledge? This is not just a matter of intellectual curiosity, but a profound reflection on the ethical limits of science and human understanding. Andrés' story reminds us that knowledge can be a double-edged sword. While it enables us to cure diseases, explore the universe and understand the mysteries of life, it can also take us down dark and dangerous paths if the ethical and moral principles that govern our society are not respected. As viewers of this dark story, we are challenged to consider: should the desire for knowledge be limited by a moral conscience? To what extent can we justify our methods and experiments in the name of scientific discovery? And what are the consequences of exceeding these limits? These questions have no easy answers. They invite us to continually reflect on our values and responsibilities as seekers of knowledge. In a world where technology advances rapidly and new scientific frontiers are constantly challenged, it is crucial to maintain an open dialogue about the ethical implications of our actions. The case of Andrés de Proaza and his cursed chair is not just a horror narrative, but an urgent reminder that unprincipled knowledge can turn into a danger for both the individual and society as a whole. Now it's your turn to contribute to this reflection. Share your opinions on the ethical limits of science and knowledge in the comments. How do you believe we can ethically and responsibly advance the field of research and discovery? Subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories and discussions on fascinating topics like this. Together, we can consciously explore knowledge and promote a future where the search for truth is guided by principles that respect life and human dignity. Thank you for watching and participating in this journey with us. Until the next video.